All right. I don't even remember what I'm doing. Yeah. Thank you for dropping by. Let me know how the audio sounds. Let me know how the audio sound, man. You heard? Mizzy, you heard me? Ma, let me know how the audio sounds. Let me know how the audio sounds. Just to make sure. Oh, I'm tweaking. I don't know why I went here already. I just wasted mad fucking. Oh, yeah. How can you bridge? Oh my fucking god. Oh, that's crazy. And I don't even brush my teeth. I use bitch mac sticks. Use sticks, not toothbrushes. That's what happened. What about all the extra shit? Make you retarded to fucking your teeth. You and everybody looking British. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I don't have it. You really want to do this? Listen, so good. It's going to be hard to come by. Buggy, buggy. I knew it. I knew it. Damn, I had a clear shot too. That's not for us. ICP. That's what it is. Oh, he definitely did. It should be cheesy. I hate that fucking slogan. Give me a damn slogan. Make sure to smash that follow button and subscribe for my PDFs. Watch your financial journey get rich. What's over here first? Same thing. Hey, what's up? What are you doing? Oh shit. Things like that. Out from under. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Tell him I'm tight. He still didn't jump in and play this with me yet. Make sure to smash that follow button. Pick up those PDFs I got too, man. Subscribe. How fire, give you a broad understanding of Bitcoin, Ethereum. Starting your own trust fund. Becoming your own bank. Is the Black Knight again? No? Yes? Maybe so. Maybe so. God. I better get my money back. The most innocuous facade often conceals the most vicious in you. Mm. Got a 6 piece and stand here about my please. Got a pocket that that's fucked up. It's fucked up. You got quick little 5 games. Give me nothing back. Hey, relax, brother, man. Relax, relax. Hmm. Might start liberal to your dad. I wanna go over and see if I can make these swords. I wanna see if I could do it, baby. Not enough money. Yeesh. Right. I'm gonna sell some. Why ahoy there? That's not. Betul. Apa? Oh, yes. Aha, OC. Didn't she tell you go sit down? I was saying this week for math or reading. Oh, so go put it down. Go put it. You better put it down. Me too. Me some rappers. When? What are you talking about? I was just talking about the gems. I just found some mithril, but I need some oracular now. Oh, she let me like that color. You better leave it alone. Almost speed. What the fuck is that? Make sure to make little comments for no reason. All of it counts towards the person. Oh shit. All right. I ain't good to you, cuz. What's up? Yeah, what's up? Give me the fisty cuffs then, cuz. What's up, bad man? Mm-hmm. I'm on, bad man. Okay. Sorry. Sasuke. Sasuke. Lean on me, God. Ooh, bro. I think I might play Zelda A Link to the Past next. I'm not gonna hold you. Zelda music is just fire. Or I might do another Ocarina of Time run. Ocarina of Time is my favorite one. Um, oh shit, my oh damn. Oh, why you beat me ass? Fuck you, Cupo. Do your job, cuz. Let me slide on them niggas by myself. Neurotoxin. Oh, see, look, they're talking about the tick right now. The tick right now. That the worst thing about a tick bite is that when it bites you, it can accidentally paralyze one of your nerves and cause your like one of your major organs to unparalyze. But besides that, you really have no fear of them. But shit, let that motherfucker paralyze the wrong motherfucking shit. You about to shoot the one. You about to shoot it. So, hey, you said you had $5 left from that from the store, Ma. You said you had $5 left from the store. I might go get a tuna and a chicken packet for us. What the fuck did you just say? I said chicken and tuna. This shit said throw cranberries. What you mean you can't hear the video? Like you can't hear the YouTube? Well, yeah, you too. Oh, that's cause that don't make no sense.
The universe. Black holes are bad enough. I don't want them to
Can you
start
hear it now?
wandering around. The good news, however, is that despite this black hole weighing approximately the same as 1 billion suns as it flies through space at 5 million miles per hour, it's estimated to be about 8 billion light years away from Earth. So
All
we're
right.
pretty safe
All
at
right,
this
yeah.
point.
See, I
But
got to
here's the
learn how to
thing.
tweak it
If
more
we
because
found
I
one,
had put it on
it is
track
very
too.
likely that there are many more out there.
I'm trying to
One
tweak
search
the
of this
muted
wandering black hole
mute
and you
it,
are going down
the
a
sound
space
settings so that
rabbit
they
hole of
proper.
only the
Like
most
I didn't have them
terrifying
proper.
things. In our number 3 spot
I
today,
just
we
left
have
them
the
on
Rat
default the
King.
whole time
I
since
would
I
have thought that this
started
was just the
streaming, but
male
now I'm starting to
antagonist
learn
in the
more.
Nutcracker, but turns out it is far worse. Rats are pretty freaky to many people for a variety of reasons, but the image of this one is even worse than just a single standalone rat. Basically, the term Rat King refers to a large group of rats that all have their tails tied together at the end. It is indeed a rare occurrence, and the tails could be stuck together for a variety of reasons. Whether it's because the hair got entangled together, there's some sort of sticky substance holding them together, or just,
Ooh, how
you
you
know,
little
a
mister? You bitch
regular
ass nigga.
knot. Whatever the case
You
is,
bitch
a
ass
Google
nigga.
search of this term will only have images coming up, and it truly is unsettling to see. It's obviously sad because no one wants to see an animal in a tricky situation, but also, it's rats. Rats are creepy. A bunch of rats all tied together is extra creepy. The reports of these rat kings mainly come from European countries, and although the existence of this phenomena is for some reason debated due to the limited evidence of its natural occurrence, there are still plenty of terrifying image results any search will yield. In our number 2 spot today, we have a pilot's view in a storm. Taylor and I were on a plane this week, a few actually, so when I found out about this via watching a video, I was thankful I hadn't seen it before our flight. The view for a pilot has got to be pretty great for a lot of the job. Flying over beautiful places with incredible sights, that sounds amazing. And you know, pilots have only the best eyesight, so they're seeing it all super well. Flying at night, however, well, for pilots, I'm sure it's totally fine and normal, but when the average passenger catches a glimpse of what they are seeing, especially when the weather isn't exactly being kind, well, it was definitely enough to totally freak me out. A Google search of what a pilot sees when flying at night through a snowstorm isn't exactly a comforting sight. In fact, it's absolutely terrifying. It looks like we're traveling to another universe, not just barreling through our skies. I, of course, trust the pilots who have the training and the expertise, but it's just very unnerving to know what they are seeing while I'm just passed out with my neck pillow, you know? In our number 1 spot today, we have the hairy frog. Last time we talked about some weird frogs. Today, we've got another kind. This frog isn't poisonous. It isn't growing eggs out of its back. These frogs simply just are hairy, and it is so unsettling. The Central African Trichobatrachus robustus. These frogs, they're often referred to as the hairy frog or the horror frog, which I really agree with. These frogs have the unusual feature of having a thick mane of hair that is seen on their flanks and hind legs in the males of the species. According to experts, many believe that this feature is useful to the frogs because it could help them to stay underwater for longer periods of time. This proves to be extremely useful when they're tasked with guarding the female's eggs. This isn't the only weird feature of these frogs, however. Unfortunately, frogs also have claws. These bones burst through the toes of their hind legs, and it is said that they are used in, quote, interspecific combat. This has all led to these guys receiving the nickname Wolverine frog, which I honestly think is the most apt. Maybe they'll make an appearance in Deadpool 3. Who knows? Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have walking corpse syndrome. Cotard syndrome, also known as walking corpse syndrome, is a rare and severe mental illness that can cause a person to believe that they are dead or do not exist. Individuals with this disorder may also experience delusions of immortality or think that their internal organs have stopped functioning. Basically, those suffering from this syndrome can believe that they don't exist, that they are already dead, or that somehow they have lost all of their organs or other vital fluids. This syndrome can also occur alongside other mental health conditions such as depression, schizophrenia, or bipolar disorder. The causes of this syndrome are not really fully understood, but it is thought to result from abnormalities in brain function and also structure. The treatment for this syndrome typically involves a combination of medication and psychotherapy, and in some really severe cases, hospitalization might also be necessary. Googling this syndrome can definitely send you down a rabbit hole of terrifying things that our brains are capable of doing, and the scary things that they can convince us are real. In our number 9 spot today, we have spontaneous human combustion. Alright, spontaneous human combustion. Exactly what it sounds like. It is a phenomenon where a human body can seemingly suddenly burst into flames without an external source of ignition. Okay? Just add that to the list of things that you should just be terrified of, I guess. Despite numerous reports of such incidents throughout history, the scientific community remains pretty skeptical about the existence of this phenomenon, but there is some
called top 10 most amazing, but you can always just watch it here.
Some theories suggest that certain chemical reactions within the body could lead to the
They got top 10 most amazing, and then like the it's just one called most amazing. Like I think, oh, I'm sorry, most amazing elite
may have been involved in the reported cases. While spontaneous human combustion remains a mystery, it continues to fascinate and intrigue scientists and medical professionals and just the general public alike, because it is a horrible thought. If it really does exist, it's basically just a game of waiting and hoping not. In our number 8 spot today, we have the sleeping sickness. Sleeping sickness, also known as African trypanosomiasis, is a parasitic disease caused by a protozoan parasite. It is transmitted to humans through the bite of the tsetse fly found in rural areas of sub-Saharan Africa. Symptoms of the disease include fever, headache, joint pain, and itching, followed by fatigue, confusion, and disturbed sleep patterns, which is what gives the disease its name. If left untreated, sleeping sickness can lead to severe neurological damage and even death. A diagnosis can actually be very difficult, but early detection and treatment with medication can thankfully cure the disease. Sleeping sickness actually remains a very significant public health problem in many parts of Africa, particularly in areas with limited access to healthcare. Of course, Googling this sickness will have images of the fly popping up, photos of infection sites, ill people who are currently dealing with the effects of the illness, and many other just very grim scenarios. All in all, this health problem is definitely one that people need to know about, so research into it can continue, but just be wary that your search might yield some unsettling results. In our number 7 spot today, we have hantavirus. We hear a lot about how rats and mice living among humans was the cause for the hasty spread of disease in time periods like the medieval, and thankfully it seems to be less of a problem now, but that doesn't mean the problem has simply ceased. Aside from stealing your food, there are still many viruses these pesky critters can spread, and one of those is hantavirus. The virus is found in their urine, droppings, and saliva, and it can be spread to people when they come into contact with contaminated surfaces or inhale the virus in the air. Symptoms of hantavirus infection can range from mild flu-like symptoms to more severe respiratory and kidney problems. There is no specific treatment or vaccine for hantavirus infection, and it can even be fatal in some cases. Okay? Prevention measures include controlling rodent populations, of course, avoiding contact with rodent excrement, which should just be a goal on a day-to-day, and taking precautions when cleaning areas with signs of rodent activity. If you've got a mouse problem, you might want to stop procrastinating that call to the exterminator. It might be more urgent than you once thought. In our number 6 spot today, we have anesthesia awareness. This is something you should definitely never Google if you're a person who already has anxiety surrounding surgery, or if you or anyone you know and love is getting surgery soon, okay? Just, you don't want to hear about it. Anesthesia awareness, also known as unintended intraoperative awareness, is a rare but very distressing complication of general anesthesia. It occurs when a patient is aware of their surroundings in the surgical procedure being performed on them, despite being given medication to render them unconscious and unaware. Like, your body is asleep, but your mind is very, very awake. Anesthesia awareness can cause significant psychological trauma and may result in long-term mental health issues such as PTSD. Patients who experience this phenomenon may report feelings of panic, helplessness, and even pain during surgery. Although the incidence of anesthesia awareness is very low, estimated to occur in less than 1% of all surgeries, it remains a concern for both patients and healthcare providers. Various risk factors have been identified, such as the use of muscle relaxants, inadequate dosing of the anesthesia, and just different medical conditions. There are, thankfully, preventative measures in place to try and avoid this type of scenario, and you can absolutely chat with your doctor if you're worried about this sort of thing, but at the end of the day, just knowing about it is enough to give me chills. In our number 5 spot today, we have rabies. Just so, that's it. Okay, I feel like when I was a kid, we heard a lot about rabies for some reason, but now as an adult, we don't really talk about it very often. That's fine. I mean, I don't have a lot of reason to talk about rabies, but I don't think I ever realized how serious it actually is and how it affects people. And now that I've Googled it, I've gone down into the depths of the internet about rabies. Rabies is a viral disease that affects the nervous system of mammals, including humans, of course, and it is transmitted through the saliva of an infected animal, usually through a bite or a scratch. Once the virus enters the body, it travels to the brain and causes inflammation, which leads to a range of symptoms. These include fever, headache, muscle weakness. As the disease progresses, the person may experience more severe symptoms like hallucinations, seizures, and paralysis. Searching and learning more, seeing it in action, infection and all of that honestly is just terrifying. Rabies is very serious and is a potentially fatal disease if left untreated. It is preventable, thankfully, with the use of vaccines and proper medical care after exposure, but without access to these sorts of things, it can be extremely dangerous. To help avoid with problems like this, it's best to limit contact with wild animals, particularly bats, raccoons, skunks, and foxes, which are common carriers of the virus. So if you live in really any city in Canada, good luck, man. They're just all of them, just around. In our number 4 spot today, we have fatal familial insomnia. Fatal familial insomnia, or FFI, is an extremely rare and fatal genetic disorder that affects the brain. It is inherited in an autosomal dominant manner, which means that an affected person has a 50% chance of passing the disease on to their offspring. The onset of FFI usually occurs somewhere in the middle of life and is characterized by progressive insomnia, which worsens over time and is accompanied by hallucinations, delirium, and eventually dementia. The disease can progress rapidly, with death occurring within a few months to a few years after the onset of symptoms. FFI is caused by a mutation in the PRNP gene, which leads to the formation of an abnormal prion protein in the brain. This protein accumulates and damages brain tissue, leading to the symptoms of FFI. Unfortunately, there is no cure for FFI, and treatment is really limited to just alleviating symptoms. Research into the disease is ongoing, and scientists hope to one day find a cure or a way to prevent the disease from developing. Searching this terrifying and very real disorder can lead you to the terrifying world of prions and all of the horrors that surround them.
Mentos gum comes in a durable paperboard gum bottle that can handle just about anything. Try it for yourself.
In our number 3 spot today, we have the Dyatlov Pass incident. Okay, if you want to be a part of one of the most enduring mysteries, then you need to learn about the Dyatlov Pass incident. If you've never heard of it, basically in February of 1959, 9 young Soviet hikers set out to trek through the Ural Mountains. They had set up a camp, and sometime during the night, something happened that made them cut their way out of the tent and all flee the site. Leaving in such a rush, they were of course underdressed for the bitterly cold weather, and 6 of them ended up passing away from hypothermia, which is extremely tragic. The other 3, however, is where this story takes a very frightening turn. Like I mentioned before, no one knows why they fled the tent in the first place, and the last 3 hikers were found passed away with severe signs of physical trauma that no one could agree on what had caused it. In 2019, the investigation was reopened, and just a couple years ago, there was a conclusion that a kind of avalanche called a slab avalanche was the cause for these injuries. Before you come at me in the comments, I know not everyone is convinced that's what happened, and I don't blame you. Many people don't agree with this quote official conclusion, and when you learn about the nature of the injuries, it really does seem strange. This remains one of those cases that people just can't quite agree on what happened, and learning about it only leaves you with more questions than answers. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Heuerbach monster. This monster is a mysterious creature that has allegedly been sighted in the dense forests of Germany. It is said to be a humanoid creature standing over 7 feet tall with long arms and a muscular build covered in matted fur. Witnesses describe it as having a broad, flat face with glowing eyes and large fangs protruding from its mouth. The first reported sighting of this monster dates back to the early 20th century, but there have been numerous sightings reported in the decades since. Many locals believe it to be a malevolent being, and there are stories of it attacking and killing livestock and even humans who venture too close to its territory. Despite numerous attempts to capture or study the creature, there is no concrete evidence of its existence that has ever been found, and some skeptics dismiss this monster as nothing more than a myth or legend, but others remain convinced that it is a real, undiscovered species lurking in the forests. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the cattle crimes. Adding one more enduring unsolved mystery to this list, we have these crimes which were revealed when a set of documents became declassified, and they described this super grim FBI investigation that took place in the mid-1970s at the request of U.S. Senators Floyd Haskell of Colorado and Carl Curtis of Nebraska. I guess there was some weird sort of connection between these horrific things being done to cattle across as many as 21 states. In a letter from 1975, Senator Haskell was able to identify 130 of these strange, macabre cases in Colorado alone. All of the cases were eerily similar, which is unsettling considering the details. In most cases, the cattle would have their left ear, left eye, rectum, and reproductive organ all missing, and all the blood was drained from the carcass, but there was no blood on the ground around them, nor were there any footprints. How absolutely horrifying is that? Some people chose to believe that the cause for these was mysterious helicopters and UFOs, but there's a letter from Senator Curtis to the FBI director that says, quote, "The series of incidents stretching from Oklahoma to Nebraska in which cattle have been dismembered in some kind of strange witchcraft cult." I'm not gonna lie, I don't think UFOs or witches did it. It wasn't until 1979 that the FBI was granted jurisdiction to begin investigating these weird happenings, and when they did, they determined that most of the instances were the result of, quote, "normal predator and scavenger activity." And while that answer sounds a little fishy, the documents went forward to reveal that not all of the instances could be accounted for. Also, this idea of it being a completely normal scenario also contradicts reports that say that the techniques used in these horrible instances were, quote, "very professional," and sometimes even referred to as being conducted with surgical precision. I'm sorry, but a wolf or a coyote or a bear or whatever predator you want to say did this, ripping apart its meal isn't exactly a surgically precise operation. No arrests were ever made, and while it was deemed solved, a ton of mystery still surrounds these stories to this day.
And from there, his story went public. Not too long after, he was approached by two government agents that called themselves Number 9 and Number 10. They demanded to see the site of where the photo was taken, and when they discovered that Templeton didn't actually see the spaceman in person, that he just showed up in the photograph, they got very angry and walked away. Not long after that, Templeton was contacted by two employees at a missile launch pad that was located near the site where the photo was taken, and these men claimed that they had seen two figures that resembled the men in the photo. Ooh, so weird. Props an alien spaceman. What a wild story.
Starting us off with number 10 is the Globster. So back in May of last year, a creature dubbed the Globster washed up on a beach in the Philippines. Now in the video of the creature, it seems to be a 6-meter long thing covered in whitish grayish hair. Honestly, even in pictures of the Globster, I can't identify where the head of this thing is and where the back is. It's just the same, I just don't know. It's just a giant hairy carcass that people speculated was an undiscovered monster from the deepest parts of the ocean. Many locals were worried by the creature, saying the arrival of something so unusual can only be a bad sign and that an earthquake may be on the way. Some even reached further and said it was a really old whale carcass, but I've seen many whale carcasses online and they never have fur or hair on them, and that much of it, no matter what stage of decay I've seen them in. But I'm no expert, so I could totally be wrong. Either way, the Globster remains a complete mystery.
Coming in at number 9, we have Provo Canyon Bigfoot. In October of 2012, a group of siblings were hiking in Provo Canyon when they spotted something in the woods and began filming it. Earlier on their hike, they saw some deer and wanted to get a closer look at them, so they headed up in the direction of the deer. That's when they spotted this creature. At first they thought it was a bear, but were horrified when the creature stood up on its 2 legs. They got frightened and ran out of the area. To this day, they don't know exactly what it is that they saw, but they managed to capture it on tape.
Too close to it.
At number 8, we have the Montauk Monster. And that's not even a clickbaity title I made up, that's actually what the news ended up calling it. So back in July of 2008 in New York, a creature was found washed up on the beach, and it freaked the hell out of everyone because no one had any idea what it actually was. Looking at it, honestly, it was this hairless creature whose skin sort of resembled baked chicken to me. The mouth was also strange. The upper lip was kind of shaped like a beak, and it had solid teeth. It also has a tail, so there's that, but it seriously just doesn't look like an animal you would recognize. The Independent newspaper speculated the creature was some mutant experiment that might have escaped from the Plum Island Disease Center nearby. Others took a jab at guessing what it was too, with things like a raccoon, but the proportions just weren't right. A sea turtle, but it had no shell, and turtle shells are fused with the spine, so that wasn't possible either. And people even guessed it was a dog of some kind, but the feet don't match a dog's. So we still don't really know what the Montauk Monster is, and the best guess we have from a paleozoologist is that it's a raccoon with its upper jaw missing. Either way, the carcass was taken somewhere undisclosed by a random guy, so we don't even know where it is anymore. Filling our number 7 slot is the pseudo Loch Ness Monster. I feel like some kind of Loch Ness-esque monster always ends up on lists like this, but anyway, in March of last year, Jeff Warren and his son found what they thought was the Loch Ness Monster. They were walking along the beach at Wolf Island National Wildlife Refuge in Georgia when they happened upon the creature. Honestly, I mean to give them credit, the creature does look exactly how the Loch Ness Monster has been depicted in the past. You know, long neck and tail, the 2 arm fins, and the sort of fatter body. Except the creature in the video is a lot smaller than you'd expect the Scottish Loch Ness Monster to be. Like, if that one is daddy, this one is like a mini junior in comparison. I don't know what that analogy was or how I made that comparison, but I'm sure you guys get it. The creature also had a bit of its internal organs spilling out of its abdomen area, so not in the best shape, I'm not gonna lie. Marine scientists speculated it was a deep sea shark, but there appeared to be no gill slits, so that was ruled out as well. Now at number 6 is Slender Man. Terrifying game, by the way, when you're playing it in high school like I was. Why do we just get pulled towards scary things? It's literally just gonna be the end of me, I swear. I'm gonna be the end of me by just wanting scary things. Anyway, either way, back in Jan of 2017, Redditor JHood3119 said his friend who lived in upstate New York installed a security camera at his house. A few nights later, his dog had been barking all night the night before for no reason, and he just wanted to, make sure everything was all good, so he went through the footage. In front of his house in the footage, you can see a very tall, very skinny creature with glowing yellow eyes hurrying on 2 legs across the snow and then disappearing into thin air. Like, the camera was still panned onto the area, but it just full on disappeared. The dog is even in the camera footage, and you can see it turning its head and following this creature's trajectory before it disappears. The dude's neighbor is even out searching his yard with a flashlight, but they don't see the creature either. Which, I mean, I get because it disappears within seconds, but still, that's crazy. Coming in at number 5 is the ET jellyfish. So a submarine actually got this creature on tape 4,000 feet below the surface, and I kid you not, all I can say is it looks like a very high-tech black jellyfish. And now on the dome part of its body, it has a bunch of stripes coming down it that light up multicolored and kind of ebb and flow with how the creature moves. The bottom part of it looks like a black cloth, but the weirdest part was it looked like it was actually doing tricks for the submarine camera and trying to impress it almost, which, I mean, I totally understand. We all have to seize our 15 seconds of fame wisely, so you do you, boo. But people have speculated this creature looks so high-tech it could be extraterrestrial. What do you guys think? At number 4 is the Spaghetti Monster. Sounds like a very cute children's cookbook or something, but it's really not. It never is. Now this one requires a bit of backstory. Back in 2005, a physics graduate called Bobby Henderson actually started a church called the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. He did that to protest the idea of intelligent design, which is basically a theory that says you can explain the creation of life through smart arguments rather than actual natural occurrences. So he disagrees with that statement. But funnily enough, this fictitious parody spaghetti monster was found in real life, living 4,000 feet deep in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Angola.
Get on the ship and go to that other spot.
Took the footage of the creature, which looks whitish or yellowish in color and just has a bunch of tentacles coming out of it, all of different lengths and thicknesses. The body of it it looked like what our small intestines would look like if they were an animal, if you can imagine that. And experts who saw the footage said it could be a jellyfish of sorts, but I don't remember the last time jellyfish looked like that. Filling our number 3 slot is the horned sea devil. Now, back in August of 2013, a seemingly never before seen horned sea devil was found on the beach of Villaricos in Spain. I don't even know how to begin to describe this creature to you. It looks like a long white Chinese dragon from the sea. The head of the creature had 2 yellow horns coming out, and its body was around 4 meters long, ending in a sort of serpent-looking tail, but a bit larger. Samples were taken from the carcass to be tested by members of the Marine Fauna Protection Society, but even they had no idea what it could possibly be. Like, even the freaking experts don't know what it is, so what am I meant to tell you at this point? Some even speculated it was an oarfish, others said it was a sea dragon or water
supposed to be
dinosaur
fire.
of
It was
kinds.
fire, right?
Everything inconclusive. Don't ask me about it, I don't know. Now at number 2 is the melting landmass, and honestly I titled this creature that because that's literally exactly what it looks like. Back in 2017, a gigantic floating carcass was found on the shore of the island of Seram in Indonesia. The fisherman who discovered the creature said it was so big he initially thought he had found a boat stranded in shallow water. When he got closer, he figured it was a 50-foot long dead creature that he couldn't pinpoint. The creature was different colors, parts were white, some were brown, others were moldy yellow, and it honestly looked like the flesh of this creature was just melting off its body. To make matters worse, blood was also leaking from the animal and making most of the coastline bright red, but that didn't stop the locals from getting in there to figure out what the hell it was. Now, the chief scientist at the Ocean Conservancy said it was most likely a baleen whale, and that the decomposing gases inside the whale caused it to blow into an unwhale-like shape. Usually when whales die, they sink to the bottom of the ocean, but it was concluded that this one must have died with a bacterial infection that made it produce more gas, or it died in warm water, which allowed more bacteria to gather than normal. Why do I sound like a scientist or a doctor in all my videos? I'm not qualified to speak like this. Either way, this thing looks like the furthest thing from a whale, so this is just false advertisement. And finally, at number 1 is Untitled. Honestly, I really didn't know what to call this one, so I decided to just keep it mysterious. This creature was seen in footage taken by 2 boys exploring a wooded area at night. Now, I don't know where exactly they were, but the video starts with them walking through this place in the dark and hearing very weird animal sounds from a distance. And the sounds just weren't of an animal you'd heard before. They were screeches almost, or like something was choking. It honestly sounded like a possessed animal, in complete honesty, I'm not gonna lie. When the boys finally get near to where the sound is coming from, the thing changes its sound and it becomes more of a hiss at the boys, but not a cat hiss, like a human hiss. The guys make a run for it, but turn back to see the creature coming after them. Now, the thing itself is a very scrawny, pale, human-looking thing, if anything, and I want to say it was a human. It was bipedal and had 2 arms and was coming after them, trying to get them with its arms, but it just wasn't really moving like a human. Maybe it was a very disturbed or deranged person living in the middle of the woods in a cave, I have no idea, but I would piss myself if I ran into that in a dark alley. Or a light alley for that matter, it really doesn't matter.
Starting us off at number 10, we have Kazam, otherwise known as Shaquille O'Neal. For any of you who have seen that movie, man, oh man, I rewatched it recently and I do not think it holds up. But if there are Kazam fans watching, please let me know what you think down in the comments. Anyway, back to Shaq. Shaquille O'Neal was born March 6, 1972, and little did his mother know she would be giving birth to one of the most famous basketball players of all time, as well as a modern giant. Shaq clocks in at 7 feet 1 inch, which is 2.16 meters in height, and has quite the list of hilarious pictures comparing his size to other popular celebrities. One of my favorites is a picture of him with A-list comedian Kevin Hart. We all know Kevin is a shorter guy, but next to Shaq, he looks like a tiny villager. Luckily for Kevin, Shaq is just one large friendly giant.
Perdóname.
Marabito Energy will show up for your family any day, anytime. Happy holidays.
Did you ever shout me out in a song?
I know Fab did.
Fab did?
I know Duke got a shooter like JJ Reddick.
Oh, you see the
Weezy did. Migos did.
A lot of
I'm waiting on it. It's fine.
I just need a dog. Oh boy, we grew up with some like nightmare-inducing commercials back in the day. I say back in the day because commercials just aren't really a thing we have to deal with anymore. And honestly, a lot of the stuff on this list just probably wouldn't fly on TV anymore. I had a lot of fun with this one, so let me know in the comments if you'd like a part 2. There are tons of ads we cover on this channel. I'm your host, James, and these are the top 10 scary, cursed commercials you were warned not to watch. And we're starting off this list with the asbestos PSA. This is a Canadian PSA from 1984. And I'm just gonna say right off the bat, a lot of the ads on this list are from either Canada or Britain. I don't know what it is, but some of our PSAs are just unhinged. This PSA is just so morbid and full of dread.
Definitely not right now, but we'll tweak it a little later. I'm about to get a couple points of doing these bullshit dudes.
As the drab white room he's lying in, the camera slowly pans in on the man, and we hear his labored breathing get louder as we flash to clips of him having worked in houses where there was asbestos.
He needed a respirator and other protective devices to be safe.
Only he didn't know how harmful it was at the time. The music is really disquieting too, very John Carpenter-esque, like 80s synth tones. Then someone puts an oxygen mask on the man. As the text appears on screen, asbestos can be handled safely. It's an effective ad. Effective in that it scares the crap out of you. Number 9, the infamous kitchen PSA. Anyone who was watching Canadian television in the late 2000s will probably remember this horrifying commercial. This ad made me never want to work in a kitchen, but I did. Every time I had to transport something heavy, I had this nightmarish ad replaying in my head. Haven't had to think about it in a long time, but once again, it's come back to haunt me. This was part of a series of workplace safety ads that ran around the same time, all pretty horrific, but this one really takes the cake for me. So you have this young chef talking to the camera about her goals and aspirations in the field. You don't think much at first, everything seems pretty normal, but then it takes a turn. She shows her wedding ring to the camera before saying, "But I won't be marrying him this weekend." Her mood becomes somber before she says she's about to be in a terrible accident. She slips on some grease, falls to the floor, and starts giving this blood-curdling scream as we get this quick shot of her face close up, covered in third-degree burns. You're just not expecting it for something that would air right in the middle of the day on TV. It's super graphic. Definitely an ad that stuck with me, which I guess is the whole point. And at number 8, we have a smoke alarm public service announcement, our first UK ad on the list, and certainly not the last. This is an eerie ad. So we see various shots of a house at night. Oddly, things seem to almost look like they're floating, like the home is submerged in water. There's also a haziness to the image, almost like the place is filled with smoke. Then we cut to a couple laying in bed as a narrator speaks. You'd think you'd wake in a house fire, wouldn't you? But just 2 breaths of toxic smoke and you're unconscious. Your lungs fill up, just like drowning. We cut to a wider shot now, more things are floating through the air. It almost looks kind of peaceful. Then we cut to what's actually going on. Just a hard cut. Then this fire is raging just outside the couple's room as they remain asleep, totally unaware of the situation. Yeah, this is why we have smoke alarms. Another effective ad. Next up, we have a Japanese tire commercial. And I know what you're thinking, and the answer is yes. Of course, there's a ghost involved. By the way, this ad starts off with a warning message. You know your ad is messed up when you actually need to include a message before the commercial saying that they're not responsible for any injuries, illnesses, or damages that may be caused from watching it. And neither are we, by the way. Anyway, we open with a POV shot of a car driving down a snowy road at night. Soon we notice that there's a figure, an almost ghostly figure, standing in the middle of the road. Everything is quiet, and then bam, ghost lady on the windshield. I've had to watch this ad a few times, and it still makes me jump a little. Anyway, then the driver uses his amazing new winter tires to haul it out of there. This is what it takes to sell me your tires. You know what? Forget the tires. I just won't drive along desolate roads in Japan at nighttime. And at number 6 is an anti-smoking PSA. Yep, another Canadian one. Luckily, I never caught this one back in the day because I think it's a little before my time. But, you know, if I'd seen this as a kid, I would have never turned on my TV again. It's a pretty simple ad. A young woman is getting ready to go out somewhere and pulls out a cigarette. She looks young and vibrant, but as soon as she takes a puff, all the life seems to get sucked right out of her along with it, as she ages 20 years in a matter of moments, coughing as we get a close-up of her hand falling to the ground. Next, we have the Gainomax commercial. I don't know what was going through these advertisers' minds the day they came up with this idea, but somehow it was greenlit. Someone in that room just said, you know what, how we're gonna sell our protein drinks? What if we styled our commercial off the creepy videotape from The Ring? And everyone was like, yeah, that makes sense. Then someone else chimed in and was like, oh, how about the ghost girls actually revealed to be a chimpanzee? Let's do it. And oh, let's have the narrator maniacally whispering for the entirety of the ad. I don't think it could work any other way. All right, good work, everyone. So I'll sell some protein. In all seriousness, though, I actually love this ad. It's incredibly creative. It definitely does a good job at holding your attention. I'm just not sure how well it does at getting the point of the product across and, you know, selling it. I mean, does that chimpanzee's aggressive, non-blinking stare make you want to pick this product up off the shelf? Do you want to be thinking about the ghost lady from Ringu while you're chugging back a milky protein shake? Personally, I do, but most people aren't me. In fact, technically, nobody is. Very small target audience. Number 4, Natural Born Smoker. Another UK PSA. I gotta say, this one is really cool. As a fan of 80s dystopian sci-fi, this is an aesthetic I really dig. Heavy Blade Runner vibes here. At the same time, though, this also makes the ad deeply unnerving. So we see this person sitting in a dimly lit, again, dystopian apartment building. His face is only lit by the flying cars periodically moving past the window. It's clear that this person doesn't look normal, though, which is confirmed when the narrator starts describing the individual's body. The first naturally born smoker, whose body has evolved to breathe in smoke from cigarettes. The guy's got like extra eyelids to protect from the smoke, really small ears, he's all pale and bald. It's just creepy. His body, yeah, it's involved to breathe in smoke from cigarettes. It's clear that the world this person is living in is sick and polluted. You just want to take a shower after watching this thing. Probably my favorite ad on this list, just for the visuals alone, though. In at third place, we have The Third Place. This is actually a PlayStation 2 ad, but you'd think it were a remake of Eraserhead if you didn't know any better. This one is pretty much impossible to describe, so we're just gonna have to let these images speak for themselves. But if you're a David Lynch fan, you'll like this ad, and I gotta believe that it inspired at least a handful of surrealist art fans to buy a PS2.
Name the #1 free slots game. Survey says Slotomania, Slotomania, Slotomania.
Back in the day. I think this is just a really creative, cool commercial. Like, for other people, this is probably an absolute nightmare come to life. If there were any commercials on this list that could truly be placed in that cursed category, I think this would be the one. Because it's not a PSA, it's not trying to like help you in any way. I mean, it's selling you a PS2. Some people would view that as helping, but really cool ad. In its second place, we have The Dangerous Machine. This is another safety PSA out of Quebec that started airing in 2006. Again, just one of the many horrific workplace safety PSAs to come out of Canada. I find this one very effective. See a man working on the factory line. He accidentally gets the sleeve of his shirt caught in the conveyor belt, though. And yeah, we all know where this is going, right? We just don't expect to see it play out for as long as it does. The guy starts desperately yelling for help, but no one can hear him over the loud sounds of the machines. And, you know, this is TV, so we're kind of conditioned to think we'll cut away before we actually see the disturbing part. But no, we cringe in horror as the guy's hand gets pulled right into the machine. His like thumb gets pulled back, slowly crushing its way all up his arm. And we cut away without seeing him get saved too, so we're kind of left wondering just how bad this got. Completely disturbing. Finally, at #1, we have a commercial for the Adult Swim series Heart She Holler. Adult Swim. I smile just thinking about it, right? Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Tim and Eric, Metalocalypse, tons of late-night adult comedy, nothing scary to see here. Well, if I happened to see this appear on my screen late at night, I'd probably end up in the hospital. I mean, dear God, what is this? I used to have a small TV in my room, and I'd usually fall asleep to Adult Swim shows. I'd sometimes wake up in the middle of the night to some surreal weirdness and then turn the TV off and go back to sleep. I'm glad I got rid of that TV though, because if I woke up at 2 a.m. to see this, I don't think I'd make it. I don't think I'd make it through the night. Just imagine, it's late, right? You wake up to the sound of laughter. You think it's just a dream. You're disoriented, and then you look at your TV to see this pale, like, ghost lady staring right at you, her head taking up the entire frame. I think I'd have a few traumatizing moments where I'd believe a ghost took over my TV and was trying to crawl out of it. And there's another interesting story about this ad. Apparently Adult Swim was doing some weird marketing at the time where they'd splice in just a quick flash of this ad right in the middle of a normal show, like not during commercial time, just out of nowhere. This is an example of it right here. I gotta tip my hat to Adult Swim on this. That is definitely a bold and creative move, but I'm really glad I never witnessed it live. With all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.
Good things come to those who wait, but great things, those go to the ones who create, innovate, celebrate. That's how Elijah Craig came to be known as the father of bourbon, and it's why we craft our award-winning small batch bourbon for you, the ones who always bring their best to the table and bring others along for the ride. That's the greatness within.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the James Webb Telescope. Christmas definitely came on December 25th this year, especially for those of you out there who are space enthusiasts, and you know that's because the launch of the James Webb Telescope finally happened on Christmas Day itself. If you don't know, the James Webb Telescope is the largest and most powerful telescope ever developed, with its creation beginning back in 1996. The telescope was created with help from NASA, the Canadian Space Agency, and the European Space Agency, and it cost around $500 million to make. The launch of the telescope has been long awaited, as it was delayed more times than Cyberpunk. Other than the fact that we all had to wait with bated breath, the reason this launch is so exciting is because for the next several decades, this telescope will show us parts of the universe that were previously unseeable to us. We'll get a closer look at and a chance to explore other planets, we'll see the birth of stars, and it might even give us a peek into how the very first galaxies were formed. Basically, this thing might show us more about the universe than we've ever had access to before. It is truly magnificent. Right now, the telescope is passing through its most crucial phase, which is the unfurling of the sun protective shield, and if all goes well, which it seems to be thanks to the ground team working on it every step of the way, we are very close to seeing some of the most amazing space discoveries in human history. In our number 9 spot today, we have the malaria vaccine. In October of last year, the World Health Organization made an important announcement when they approved the world's very first malaria vaccine for kids. There's a couple reasons why this deserved a spot on today's list. The first one being because it is the first vaccine against any parasitic disease, which is a step forward for the world of medicine. But more importantly, this vaccine is crucial because malaria is still one of the most dangerous diseases on the entire planet, and it's one that takes the lives of over 500,000 people annually. The new vaccine cost over $750 million to make, and it began being created and tested all the way back in 1987, so it certainly was not an easy road by any means. This new vaccine is meant to fight against the deadliest of the 5 malaria pathogens, and the medicine is given through 4 different injections. Right now, it is estimated that this shot could prevent about 5.3 million malaria cases every single year. In our number 8 spot today, we have Mars. February of 2021 was a big month for Mars, which is hilarious to say, but also very true. In that time, there were 3 different missions that arrived to the Red Planet, and this wasn't really a coincidence. It was just a few different space agencies taking advantage advantage of the Earth-Mars orbit alignment, which only happens once every 26 months. First, the UAE's HOPE orbiter reached the planet, which is aimed to study the past, present, and future of the Mars climate by orbiting the planet. This will hopefully show us any patterns or changes on Mars, whether they're daily, monthly, or yearly. Then, the CNSA Tianwen-1 began surveying the surface of the planet from orbit before the Zhurong rover touched down on the planet to actually move around the surface. And then finally, we have the Perseverance rover from NASA, which will spend the next few years digging into the soil and rock to collect samples of the planet for us to study. With all of these Mars visits, one of the most important things we learned, or really tested, is how we can fly through the brutal and harsh Martian atmosphere. Basically, the Ingenuity helicopter that came on the mission with Perseverance helps by scouting out the area ahead to highlight any potential hazards or objects that might be of interest. I had to include this quote from an article on indiatoday.in where I found some of this information because it really sums up this whole point so beautifully. They wrote, quote, "This year on Mars, the UAE learned how to orbit, China learned how to land, and NASA learned how to fly." In our number 7 spot today, we have animal evolution. It isn't necessarily surprising for me to say that humans are having an impact on animal evolution. That much is kind of to be expected, especially since we tend to treat the Earth like we're the only ones who live on it. But 2021 showed us some pretty clear examples of just how we are affecting this change. Studies have now shown a sharp rise in the populations of African elephants without tusks. Why? Well, because of poaching, of course. Poachers killed so many elephants with tusks, especially during the Mozambican Civil War from 1977 to 1992, which left the females without tusks more likely to pass on their genes. Another more indirect way that humans are impacting animal evolution is with the changes that we are experiencing in the climate. A study from Trends in Ecology and Evolution has shown that bats are growing to have bigger wings and rabbits are growing to have longer ears, and these are both likely to dissipate more heat into the surrounding area and cool them down. A study in Science Advances suggested that 77 species of birds found in a remote patch of the Amazon rainforest were found to weigh less and have longer wings, most likely as a result of rising temperatures as well as the changes in the rainfall pattern. In our number 6 spot today, we have the early humans. This scientific breakthrough involves one of the earliest human species, Neanderthals. Some very cool paleontologists from Madrid created a 3D model of the ear structure of Neanderthals. That alone is just an unbelievable sentence. Scientists in 2021 recreated the ear structures of an early human species that lived 130,000 to 40,000 years ago. And that's not even the wild, crazy discovery.
The next level of nerds. Nerds Gummy Clusters. A crunchy outside with a sweet gummy center. Nerds, shake things up.
I love science. So, they created these 3D models and it made them then realize that Neanderthals may have had the ability to speak and hear just like Homo sapiens, which is of course the modern human species. Every year we uncover more and more data and material that challenges what we once thought we knew about the early humans. It is so fascinating and interesting to watch it all unfold. In our number 5 spot today, we have Early Humans Part 2. Remember when I just said 2 seconds ago that every year we learn more that changes what we once believed about the early humans and the history of humans? Well, here's another one. In September of 2021, a study dated footprints that were found in the White Sands National Park, and they were said to be from 21,000 to 23,000 years old. For those of you sitting there being like, well, how could they possibly know how old footprints are? These prints, referred to as the ghost prints, were dated by using radiocarbon dating of the dried ditch grass seeds that were found both above and below the footprints. The reason why this dating was important is because prior to this, many archaeologists placed the start of human life in the Americas at around 13,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, and this was based on tools that were found in New Mexico. The paper that published this information, which, just for transparency, has been debated by some, suggests that humans actually lived on the continent during the ice age, which of course changes a lot. A month after this find, there was a study published in Nature that showed evidence of Vikings living in North America earlier than what was once thought. The researchers got to this conclusion by examining cut wood and finding samples of a cosmic ray event that
that happened in 993 CE. This is definitely a couple of discoveries that are still unfolding and being examined and looked into further, but it's all very interesting. In our number 4 spot today, we have quantum computing. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this is a discovery that I know very little about, if I even know anything on the topic at all, so bear with me as I try to do my best to explain. To my understanding, quantum computers do in seconds what the best supercomputers would take days or weeks to complete and process. These quantum computers use the laws of quantum physics, which is the thing I know nothing about, to get these incredible processing capabilities, which completely changes the game for a multitude of things like meteorology, cybersecurity, national defense, the list just goes on. Okay, so how does this relate to a 2021 moment? Well, in November of last year, IBM launched the 127 Qubit Eagle, which is the most powerful quantum processor ever. Then a company called Quantinum launched a cloud-based cybersecurity platform called Quantum Origin. Meanwhile, I'm in 2022 still trying to figure out what the cloud is. This is said to set the stage for quantum computing to start rapidly evolving, so I guess I'm gonna need to catch up. In our number 3 spot today, we have Heart of Titanium. With the understanding that heart disease takes an estimated 17.9 million lives around the world every year, it makes a lot of sense that for over 50 years, doctors have been trying to find a way to build an artificial heart, and 2021 saw us getting the closest we've ever been. An Australian research team called Bivacor built a titanium heart that uses something called spinning disk technology. Basically, it of course doesn't operate like a normal human heart, but instead it tries to one-up and improve the regular old evolution perfected human heart and give it an even better way to pump blood around the body. It has a circular pump that is suspended between 2 magnets that lives inside of this titanium heart. Right now, there has yet to be a full human trial, which makes sense. These things take a lot of time, and it's certainly better not to rush them. The promising news, though, is that the artificial heart has been successful so far in both scenarios in animal trials, as well as when used temporarily on heart transplant patients. In our number 2 spot today, we have coral reefs. Whether you believe in climate change or not, we can all agree that in the last few decades or so, we've seen a lot of natural disasters. From forest fires to droughts and heat waves. Maybe this is a result of climate change, maybe this is just how things go. I'm not here to argue with you, I'm just here to tell you about how this uptick in natural disasters affects our planet. More specifically, our coral reefs. These kinds of disasters and just the general climate of the Earth has an impact on the temperature of the oceans. This change in temperature has caused the reefs, which we forget are living things, to cast out this kind of symbiotic algae that helps them survive, which is then causing the reefs to bleach and then die. In 2021, a huge report was published from the Global Coral Reef Monitoring Network that showed that the oceans had lost about 14% of their reefs in the last decade. Then another study was later published that showed that there was less than 2% of the Great Barrier Reef that was able to escape bleaching since 1998. And this was all published just months after a different study that suggested that half of all coral reefs have been lost since the 1950s. Unfortunately, our coral reefs are in a lot of danger right now, and it affects more than just the ecology of the ocean. It will also impact us as humans. It impacts fisheries, tourism, coastal developments. I'm not saying that all of these are good reasons to care, but if they're the ones that get someone interested, then I guess it's something worth mentioning. In our number 1 spot today, we have the fireball. On February 28th, 2021, reports came pouring in from across the UK of an unusual streak of light that was seen in the sky. These reports were far behind the UK's Fireball Alliance, though, as their cameras had already picked up the signal and they were already in the midst of estimating its landing.
I'm Patriotic Kenny.
And hi, I'm Amanda. We've set up the Patriotic Kenny Foundation to give mobility scooters to veterans.
It has changed my life tremendously.
None of this would have happened without TikTok.
That's right, this streak of light was a meteor. It's a remnant of our early solar system that has been flying through space at unbelievable speeds until it came down through our atmosphere and ended its long, awesome journey scattered in a bunch of pieces across rural Gloucestershire. Teams were sent out to be responsible for the recovery of the extraterrestrial material, which was found in a family's driveway as well as in a sheep's field nearby. This meteorite is a rare specimen known as primitive carbonaceous chondrite, which is said to contain materials that have been essentially unaltered since the formation of the solar system 4.5 billion years ago. The pieces of this meteorite can give us insights into the building blocks of the planets, and it can potentially give us clues as to how the Earth came to be this wonderful planet that possesses all of the resources necessary to sustain human life.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the stellar sea cow. Stellar indeed. Okay, the Steller sea cow was named after George Wilhelm Steller, who discovered this massive creature in 1741 during the Vitus Bering's Great Northern Expedition. They found her right after the crew became shipwrecked. What a lovely surprise to an otherwise horrible situation. They were around over 2.6 million years ago, and they were no match for humans. They only swam about a meter deep, and once humans came into the picture with, hunting and aggression and everything, they were quite easy to hunt. George Steller commented that the animals had an uncommon love for their families, which in turn made it even easier for us to hunt them. Considering the 1-year gestation period, the species just couldn't reproduce fast enough to keep up with our hunting. But this list, we have a little hope now, don't we? Scientists were able to sequence the genome, which could mean we could see the creature again one day. Hopefully. The answer may lie right now in the DNA of a dugong. Dugongs are the cow of the sea. You know what? They're great. Let's have all the cows of all seas back immediately. Number 9, passenger pigeons. The passenger pigeon once ruled the skies over Canada as recently as the 19th century. Billions of these bright orange birds would just paint the skies. They would fly in flocks so large it would block out the sun for a short amount of time. Isn't that beautiful? It's like some Lion King stuff right there. But only a few decades passed and passenger pigeons are now no more. So what happened? Well, the very last passenger pigeon, her name was Martha. She passed away in the Cincinnati Zoo back in 1914, so we took a look at her DNA to see if Martha held any secrets to her extinction. They discovered Martha had a low genetic diversity for such a growing population. Natural selection and hunting obviously just eliminated the coolest looking bird out there by far. A little different than the pigeons we have today, that's for sure. The last one died in 1914, but in 2019, paleontologists found remains of the pigeon protected in indigenous lands in Canada, up in Northwest Territories. They blended passenger pigeon DNA with Archaeopteryx dinosaur DNA. Yeah, we're bringing back pigeons with a hint of dinosaur. What could go wrong? Number 8, the woolly mammoth. It was announced only months ago that a team of scientists and entrepreneurs over at a company called Colossal are planning to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. That's just the thing we need right now in this world. Out of all the problems, we're like, you know what could solve it? The woolly mammoth, for sure. That'll bring jobs back. The Siberian tundra thousands of years ago was once full of these woolly mammoths, but climate change began to slow them down just a little bit. And humans also needed food, so that surely didn't help. These guys provided warmth and, well, look at them, obviously a lot of food. Genetics company Colossal raised over $15 million to try and bring this thing back to life. Honestly, I hope it works, but then, now what? All these things are great scientifically, but it's like, and then what? Number 7, the dodo bird. Speaking of the devil, we're definitely gonna eat these guys. Dodo birds were once big and beautiful. These flightless ground nesting birds once filled the island of Mauritius, located in the Indian Ocean. They had massive talons, they were big, gray, and blue, and they didn't have any natural predator, which is pretty sweet. They didn't have one until we came along. Around 1507, the island was discovered by Portuguese sailors, and, well, the rest is history. They were the easiest bird to hunt, hence the phrase dead as a dodo. They weren't just loved by sailors either. We're not just 100% here to blame, Monkeys, rats, pigs, any animal that made its way to the island easily had their eggs for lunch. So yeah, it didn't take a long time for the dodo bird population to be completely wiped out. The last dodo was hunted in 1681, but can we bring back the dodo bird? Are we doing it? I think we're gonna do it. Scientists found an extremely well-preserved dodo skeleton back in 2007, so we may have a chance at picking some DNA apart here. A research facility near Melbourne, Australia is currently trying to use pigeon genes to bring this bird back to life. I'm all for the idea of bringing back an animal. Scientifically, that's a feat in itself, but do we really think nobody's gonna make dodo chicken wings? I'm just saying. That's just a problem waiting to happen. Number 6, Pyrenean ibex. The last Pyrenean ibex was a female named Celia. A falling tree sadly killed her in 2000. She was a subspecies of the Spanish ibex, and the Pyrenean ibex were native to the Pyrenees Mountains on the border of Spain and France, as her name hints towards. Back in the medieval ages, though, their population was reduced drastically to an endangered level. So it wasn't just recently, it was way back, because of, again, we got hungry. They were all over the place, and knights and swords and bows and armies to feed. They were hunted down, sadly. Disease spread by humans also played an important role in their demise during this time. The Pyrenean ibex was successfully cloned and brought back from extinction for 7 minutes. So we actually did this one. DNA from the last living lady was implanted in the womb of a domestic goat. Lung complications are why the clone didn't last, but listen to what I just said. They made a clone. 7 minutes is a start. I think I could handle a clone of myself for 7 minutes, and then after that, I'm tapping out. Number 5, Tasmanian tiger. Once native to Australia, the Tasmanian tiger, also known as the thylacine, it was a massive carnivorous marsupial that went extinct around the 1930s. Major factors here, as you guessed, climate change, hunting, and its genetic diversity wasn't all too great. It was sad on one hand because these beautiful creatures disappeared so recently, but it's recent enough that we have a shot at bringing them back. So we're like, but maybe. Yeah, imagine looking outside and seeing this thing on your front yard. Are we ready for this? Specimens still remain preserved in jars. Thank God for those jars. About time we open those things up, right? All those jar guys are like, finally, pull this one out. Already we have some of the Tasmanian tiger genes present after scientists inserted them into a mouse fetus. The Australian Museum has been working hard to bring this beast back to life. They're only still lacking the DNA to fully recreate it. So if you have any jars of Tasmanian tiger parts, help us out, hit those thumbs. Number 4. The great auk. Once thriving in colonies off North Atlantic coasts, the great auk would grow to 30 inches long and its tiny wings would be only used to swim. Had little tiny wings. The wings were much smaller. They were about 13 centimeters long, little flappy arms. No wonder they couldn't fly. Look at these things. Oh my God. They were cute, but obviously they were quite defenseless. Around the 1500s, European fishermen discovered this perfect area for hunting, and it just happened to be where most of these great auks were hanging out. Newfoundland looked like the iceberg from Club Penguin, and then we just rolled in and we're like, we are so hungry. It was packed, so they rapidly declined, and by 1950, the last 2 known specimens were hunted by a single fisherman on Eldey Island, just off the coast of Iceland. Scientists plan on using genetic information extracted from their fossils or preserved organs, remember those jars of organs always coming in handy. They plan on editing their DNA in the closest living species, which is now the razor-billed auk. The organization Revive and Restore is behind the wheel on this one, and I'm hoping they pull through. Number 3, the moa. This New Zealand bird went extinct about 600 years ago. Moa were these flightless birds, massive might I add, and archaeologists first discovered its fossil in a cave. Its flesh and everything was still attached, that's the gross part. These ancient birds would reach about 5 feet tall, and when you think of dinosaurs, you probably think that's quite petite in comparison. These birds stopped flying right after the dinosaurs went extinct. Interesting timing. According to biologist Matthew Phillips from the Australian National University in Canberra, these birds safely roamed the land after they didn't need to make these daring dino escapes in the sky. They walked around, got fat, and would hang out in caves. Honestly, pretty ideal. Phillips says this is an advantage when it comes to birds and evolution because wings, be it big or small, kill energy. So it might seem a little depressing to watch a creature lose the ability to fly, but it's because they're eating good, they're comfortable now. Scientists have now found more moa DNA from ancient eggshells, so it's possible that we may see these fatties soar the skies once again. Number 2, Megatherium, aka giant ground sloths. That's a bit of a nicer name. Yeah, sloths, let's bring those back. Wait, they're already here. I'm confused, Taylor. Sloths used to be a lot bigger than we think. We often look at them now for being so slow and silly. The movie Ice Age or Zootopia, they sure didn't help their case. Now, of course, the giant ground sloth is closely related to our modern 3-toed sloth, but luckily for us, today's sloths aren't that big. They're not the same size as an elephant, which is pretty sweet. That would be a horror film. If a giant elephant-sized sloth started to climb that tree, slowly, might I add, I'd be sick. We may be able to bring this one back, although they died off 8,000 years ago. DNA samples were extracted from their hair remains, so the next step now is to develop a fetus in an artificial womb. That's the hard part. That's where science and technology might just do the rest. But as of right now, we've got a pile of hair. We're like, maybe. And finally, number 1, the gastric brooding frog. I'm a big fan of frogs and toads, all that stuff. Except for when they hatch eggs out of their back. That's arguably the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. We'll maybe show you after, maybe, I don't know. These gastric brooding frogs would swallow their eggs and then hatch them out of their mouth. So if you watch them give birth in reverse, it would be pretty confusing. That would be a horror film. They went extinct back in 1983, but scientists have figured out how to implant these dead cells into a fresh egg from an entirely different frog species. Let's just hope these new ones aren't born out of your back. Kicking off the list at number 10, SS Garsopa. We'll kick off this deep sea part 3 with a shipwreck. Whenever it comes to underwater stuff, I think I have thalassophobia. These were hard to look at and look into, rather. I got chills looking at these photos, honestly. The SS Garsopa was once a thriving British cargo ship. Back in 1941, during World War II, the cargo ship was en route, returning from India carrying a pretty nice amount of silver. It was a lot of silver, an alarming amount of silver. A storm rolled in, so the captain made a quick decision, knowing what was on board, to avoid the rough waters as much as possible, So the ship changed direction and started heading towards Ireland. Again, this was 1941 during World War II, so not a great time to head that direction. The ship was spotted by a German plane, and a U-boat later claimed the lives of the SS Garsopa's 85 passengers. News traveled quickly, and once the war came to an end, a few divers checked out the area. There was nothing. Now fast forward to 2011, Odyssey Marine's team found the ship. 14,000 feet below the surface, surrounded by just pure darkness. The team kept around 80% of the treasure found, and the rest went to Her Majesty's Treasury. In case you were wondering, there was around $150 million worth of treasure found. Yeah, if you can do it, then go grab it. Sure. It's like one of those things where someone's like, hey, you want $150 million? Go into this deep, dark, scary thing. Would you do it? No. My answer is no. Number 9. Ram's horn squid. This little squishy dude was discovered around 3,000 feet below the surface, and scientists cannot stop talking about the way he moves. Look at him. He looks like a really slow submarine, which is pretty amazing when you think about the Schmitz Ocean ROV that's down there getting this footage. It's also a submarine. How funny is that? He's looking at him. He's looking at them. They're like, what? He's like, what? They're all just both wiggling, trying to balance each other out. His body acts like a submarine's ballast does. Fluids and gases shift around, and in return, this little guy can float up and down whilst wiggling his toes. Look at him. I never thought a squid would be cute until now. Didn't know that was a possibility. Yet here we are. Part 3, most amazing. Cute squid. Number 8. Catherine Sullivan. Not really a deep sea discovery, but I mean, when talking about all these discoveries, you gotta ask, who goes down there? Who does the thing, right? When an entertainer wins an Oscar, Emmy, Tony, and Grammy, we call that an EGOT. Fun little title only a handful of artists can claim. But what about somebody who's been to both space and the deepest part of our Earth? What do we call them? Well, so far, them is just one individual. Her name's Catherine Sullivan. The former NASA astronaut decided to change up directions for this trip, so she joined Victor Vescovo on one of his 8 trips to the deepest known point on Earth. July 7th, 2020, Catherine Sullivan officially became the first person to do both. Go out there and then down there. That's crazy. Your Fitbit's like, what are you doing? What's happening? How many steps is this? What can we call this impressive title? EGOT, a deep got? A deep got go-getter? A deep go-getter? Yeah, you're a deep go-getter. That sounds awful. We're doing our best here. Maybe part 4 will have a fun name. It's impressive. It's so impressive my ears hurt thinking about all these commutes. Bravo. Hats off to you. Number 7, Holy Grail of Shipwrecks. Okay, back to shipwrecks. It's hard to read up on these shipwrecks sometimes, well, all the time, because on one hand, it's fascinating to discover parts of our history we thought was once lost forever. Of course, we find tons of treasure. That's always fun and noteworthy, but we're also exploring the scene of a horrible wreck every single time. It's quite grim, not on paper. In 1708, the San Jose galleon was heading to Spain from Colombia, but when the British attacked, the San Jose sank to the ocean floor, and nearly all 600 crew members lost their lives. Yeah, dark history. In 2015, the ship was found with around $17 to $22 billion worth of plundered valuables. See, back in the 80s, Glocamora Company claimed they had found the ship. Colombia was lacking the financial and technological resources to dive down and actually get it, so they agreed to give GMC 35% of the findings. In 1984, they then handed the rights over to an American company, Sea Search Armada. Then the game changed. Since then, and still to this day, legal battles have been unfolding over this lost treasure. COVID delayed it quite a bit, so if you can hold your breath for a really long time, it's still waiting there. No one knows what to do with it yet. I'm like, see ya, be right back. Number 6, the Vasa shipwreck. Back in 1628, the Vasa sunk within 20 minutes of setting sail, and it claimed the lives of 30 souls on board. How tragic is that? Only 20 minutes and it was gone. The Swedish Navy launched the ship August 10th, 1628, and it was once considered a high-tech warship, even referred to as spectacular. So what happened? How did this thing sink in 20 minutes? That's crazy. Well, the first rush of wind caught it off guard and it swayed a bit. The second rush of wind sank it. There's gotta be more. There was a crowd around and everything to send it off, but the 64 bronze cannons that were installed during the rush process of building the ship were too heavy. That's why it sank. And the lack of oxygen in the water allowed for its rediscovery to continue its story. The Vasa was built with carvings all around the wood, carvings centered around the king of the time, King Gustav II. So when the wreck was rediscovered in 1961, 95% of the wood was still intact, so it still tells the story. Number 5, Under the Ice. This dark discovery was pretty recent. Recent as in October 2021. The Hakon Project is one I would never sign up for personally, but I'm surprised it's taken this long to do something along these lines. The Hakon Project is a group of around 30 scientists. They teamed up to send a deep sea robot 13,000 feet below the icy surface of the Arctic Ocean. This was the first time we got to see the hidden volcanic vents that have been hiding for centuries, because obviously it's that deep and that cold, and now we have the resources and people who are brave enough to go and camp out in the Arctic to go explore floor. That's crazy. Number 4, ancient Greek shipwreck. I remember hearing about this back in 2018, so I'm excited I get to throw it on a list. The oldest shipwreck discovered in the Black Sea. It looks like it sank 50 years ago, but actually this ship is from 400 BC. It's an ancient Greek trading vessel and it's not very large, but somehow this thing is very mighty. 2,400 years later, over a mile below the surface, the lack of oxygen again actually preserved this ship. That's why it looks not ancient. John Adams, principal investigator with the Black Sea Marine Archaeology Project, describes the findings as something he never thought was even possible. Yeah, more than fair. That long ago, like, we're still trying to figure out the pyramids. We're like, oh my god, this thing's just chilling there the whole time. Just a fish is staring at it. This discovery changed what we knew about seafaring in the ancient world. The oldest intact shipwreck known to mankind. That's not a bad title. Another 2,000 years we'll find nothing but plastic on the bottom of our oceans. Number 3, underwater river. We've heard about this one at some point, I'm sure, but how is this even a real thing? How is this possible? What are we looking at? What is this? Back in 2016, researchers working in the Black Sea found these very strong currents. Currents of water flowing at the bottom of the sea like its own river almost. If this 115-foot deep river was on land instead of, well, under the Black Sea, it would be ranked number 6 in the world for the amount of volume alone that's constantly rushing through it. So pretty impressive. The river carries heavy sediments along the seafloor, hence why it makes those grooves over time. And yeah, over time those currents carve out their own path, and now it's massive and extremely powerful and unstoppable. But luckily for us, you need a deep sea rover to take a good look, so you're not gonna fall in anytime soon. Number 2, deep waste. I mentioned some deep sea plastic on this channel before, but this 2021 discovery is just a new low, pun intended. Right off the coast of LA, hiding around 4,000 feet below the ocean's surface, sitting there for quite a long time, were literal barrels of garbage, just waste. The plume of evil coming off of these things also, it looks like a nuclear wasteland. Probably because it is a literal nuclear wasteland. How horrible is that? There weren't 30 or 40 of these barrels also, in case you're wondering. There were thousands. Around 27,000 were found. 2 weeks of searching with subs. What a sad expedition that must have been. Oh my. These barrels were dropping into the ocean around 1947 to around 1961. That's the window of time. You'd think after barrel 5,000, somebody would be like, this feels wrong. I don't know. And finally, number 1. Beneath a glacier. We had to end this part 3 on some new footage from the bottom of an Antarctic glacier. And this glacier also, in case you're wondering, is the size of Florida. So if you're imagining like a big ice cube, it's a bit bigger than that, just a little bit. This is like finding the bottom of a continent. This thing is massive. And we sent a rover underneath all of it. How scary is that? If it were to collapse, our sea levels would rise 10 feet, just to give you an idea of how big it is. And in 2019, researchers drilled 2,300 feet right through the Thwaites Glacier and dropped a robot with a camera down, and then they just roamed around. And they saw this. Hold your breath. This is the first time we've ever seen the grounding zone of a massive glacier. There's only 1 meter of space between the bottom of the glacier and the rocky seafloor. Could you go down there? I don't think I could. I would swim underneath it and pretend like I'm lifting it up, you know? Just kidding. I wouldn't even get into the submarine to go down this hole. Not a chance. Also, can we not drill through a glacier the size of Florida? Just sounds like a bad idea. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe leave this project alone.
Starting off this countdown, we have the secret underground community. Believe it or not, but there is a group of urban explorers that like to hang out in the Paris catacombs. They call themselves the Cataphiles, and they sneak into the tunnels, evade the police, and then go exploring. In fact, they have claimed a number of sections as their own, marking it with murals and graffiti. Not only that, but they have found secret ways to get into the catacombs. Plus, they've started mapping the whole place out so that other explorers don't get lost. Only problem is that this is a very dangerous hobby. Since they are entering restricted areas in the catacombs, they have to watch out for crumbling walls, falling rocks, even pools of water. I don't know about you, but I prefer to spend my time with the living and not the dead. In our 9th spot, we have the Lost Girl. In 2005, a group of teens illegally snuck into the catacombs on New Year's. Sadly, they all didn't make it out alive. They all were drinking and having a blast when one of their friends, Masha, wandered off alone. When they finally realized she had disappeared, they went out looking for her but couldn't find her. No one knew what happened to her until 4 months later. That's when a group of boys were exploring the catacombs when they stumbled upon her frozen body. Since she was drunk, she wandered off to another section of the catacombs and then got lost and froze to death. How heartbreaking. Coming in at number 8, we have Philibert Aspel. Philibert Aspel was a doorkeeper at the Val de Grace Hospital during the French Revolution. And the hotel actually had a staircase located in the courtyard that would lead to the catacombs. So one night in November of 1793, Philibert descended into the catacombs to retrieve a bottle of liquor stored down there. However, he only brought 1 candle with him, and it was not enough to light the way. Eventually it blew out and he was down there in pitch black. Being semi-intoxicated, he stumbled around the catacombs lost. For 11 years, no one knew what happened to him. That was until 1804, when his body was found. He was identified by the hospital keyring hanging from his belt. Moving on, number 7, we have the Whispering Walls. A number of explorers have claimed that no one should ever be in the Paris catacombs after midnight. For if you are, then the walls will begin to speak. People have claimed to have heard disembodied voices coming from the catacombs. These voices confuse them and try to persuade them to travel deeper and deeper into the catacombs until you're in too far that you're lost and you can't escape. Actually, fun fact, they use this as inspiration for the movie As Above, So Below, which takes place in the Paris catacombs. In our 6th spot today, we have the camera system. In 2004, a group of French police explored some of the restricted areas of the Paris catacombs. And that's when they discovered something truly terrifying. First, they found a PA system that, when triggered, would play sounds of guard dogs barking. Then they found a full-on bar, living area, workshop, lounge, and cinema with space to fit 20 people. Like what? Not only that, but whoever created this little home setup was stealing other people's electricity from above. The creepiest part is that they had a full-on security camera set up, and the police soon realized that they were being watched. They left to get a bigger team to further investigate the area, but by the time they got back, everything was gone. The only thing left was a note that read, "Don't search." We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Decoeul. Decoeul is the name of a very mysterious man. We don't know much about him, but we do know that he was a veteran of the French army, and he was also an artist. In fact, he created a number of sculptures for the catacombs. However, this eventually led to his death. During the construction of one of his sculptures, a part of it fell and crushed him completely. It's said that to this day, his soul wanders the catacombs. In fact, people have seen him down there before. In our 4th spot today, we have the Crypt of Passions. The Crypt of Passions, located in the ossuary, is a pillar that is covered in skulls to the point that it's just completely concealed. The skulls end up forming what looks like a barrel, which is creepy for a number of reasons. Just take in, those are real skulls. You're surrounded by people who used to be living, and most of them died in tragic ways, and then their bones were used for an art display. A number of people who have visited this area in the catacombs have reported feeling very uneasy around the Crypt of Passion. It's believed that some of the souls that were placed there have not found peace. I mean, in some cultures, they believe that a proper burial must be done with a tomb marker, or else the soul will never be able to rest or go to the afterlife. However, that was not possible at the time. The catacombs were built because grave overcrowding was a serious issue back then, among other things. In our 3rd spot today, we have the scratch marks. There's this really creepy area in the Paris catacombs where it's just a wall of scratches. Like, it looks as if bodies rose from the dead and tried to scratch their way out. It's a creepy touch to the place, that's for sure. Moving on to number 2, we have the Lost Tape. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard about this urban legend before, and in fact, it also inspired the movie As Above, So Below. And it might not even be a legend, it might be real, but to this day, no one knows. Once upon a time, in 1990, a weird dusty camcorder was discovered in the catacombs. The camera appeared to have been there for quite some time, so they decided to inspect it. What was found on it was very disturbing. The video was of an unidentified male explorer wandering around the catacombs. While down there, we see him interacting with the skulls around him. But then something spooks the man and he ends up growing paranoid and panicked. At one point, he drops the camera and just runs away. Sadly, he never made it out alive. This tape contains the final moments of his life. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the criminals. In 2017, it was discovered that a group of robbers used the catacombs to break into an apartment. Basically, they figured out that the catacombs were right under an apartment vault. So they drilled their way in through the limestone and entered the apartment to steal over 300 bottles of vintage wine. In total, they valued at close to 250,000 euros. Isn't that insane?
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the earthquake detector. In 132 AD, a man named Zhang Hen was able to create the first earthquake detector called the seismoscope. Far ahead of its time, this creation was incredibly accurate and is actually comparable in efficiency to those that we use now. Apparently, in 138, this tool detected an earthquake that was a ways away, and at the time nobody believed it and dismissed the warning. A few days later, a messenger arrived and asked for help, which confirmed that this thing really did accurately detect an earthquake and where it was coming from. Researchers still aren't sure exactly how it works, which is so crazy, but I guess some things are just meant to be a mystery. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Gangkar Puensum. This mountain is the largest mountain that has been unclimbed by humans and stands at a height of 7,570 meters or 24,836 feet. Studies and measurements of this mountain started 100 years ago in 1922, but it wasn't until much more recently that we began to acquire actually accurate details about it. The name of the mountain means White Peak of the Three Spiritual Brothers, which becomes an important part of why this mountain remains unclimbed. In 1983, the mountain became open for mountaineering, but between 1985 and 1986, there were 4 separate expeditions who tried to summit it and failed. Part of the reason why these expeditions failed were because there were disputes on the location and there was just inaccurate information, so the first group who tried to summit it couldn't even find the mountain at all. In 1994, the climbing of mountains in Bhutan higher than 6,000 meters became prohibited due to spiritual beliefs, and in 2003, mountaineering became prohibited entirely. This is why the mountain remains unsummited, and while I'm sure it would be an amazing expedition for climbers, who knows what is going on up there in terms of ecology due to it being left alone. In our number 8 spot today, we have the ancient seabed. A seabed that was once located at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean was found buried hundreds of miles beneath China. This slab of rock once found its home at the top of the lithosphere, which is the outermost layer of the Earth. How did it get hundreds of miles below China? Well, it got pushed down by a neighboring tectonic plate in what is called a subduction event. This discovery was so notable because scientists had never detected a subduction event so deep within the surface of the planet. When they found this rock slab, it was still continuing its descent towards the mantle of the Earth. I wonder if one day it will come back to the surface again. In our number 7 spot today, we have a gibbon skull. Gibbons are a type of ape that are often characterized by their swinging ability coupled with their loud, bright calls, and the 8th century Chinese poet Li Bai described their voices as they swung past the Yangtze River. But here's the thing. Today, there are no gibbons that live anywhere near the river. Also, the gibbons that exist now have different fur patterns from the ones that are often depicted in classical Chinese paintings. This has led experts to believe that there must have been another kind of gibbon that has now vanished, and physical evidence of this gibbon might have turned up in the most unexpected place: a tomb. This tomb, which was built for the grandmother of the first emperor of China nearly 2,300 years ago, contained a skull and a jawbone so distinct that scientists believed they must have belonged to a member of this now extinct gibbon genus. Many surviving gibbon species are now facing extinction, so it is likely that there were others in the past who unfortunately faced the same kind of fate. In our number 6 spot today, we have the green gel. This is a discovery that was made by the U-22 rover, which is currently exploring our wonderful moon. On Lunar Day 8 last year, which began on July 25th, the rover was doing its thing, finding its way through an area that was filled with a bunch of small impact craters. On July 28th, as the team here on Earth was preparing to power down the rover for its little midday nap, which is meant to protect the machine from high temperatures and radiation from the sun, one member of the team was checking over some images that were taken by the rover's main camera, and they spotted a small crater that seemed like it contained some sort of material that had a color and a sort of luster that was significantly different from the lunar area surrounding it. The team then changed the plans they had for the rover and decided that instead of going west, which was next on the schedule, they would instead take a little detour to check out this mystery material. The rover carefully made its way over to the crater and examined it with both its visible and near-infrared spectrometer, which is a thing that detects lights that are scattered or reflected off of a material, which helps to reveal what they're made up of. For a while, no one knew exactly what the substance was, and it was only being described as being gel-like and being a weird color, but after almost a year of more research, it was finally identified. It's rock. More specifically, rock that was melted together, most likely in the heat of impact from a meteorite. It's insane that something like that created a dark green, glistening impact melt, but it's also very cool. I'm just glad that this is one mystery that we got to the bottom of. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Gobi Desert structure. This is one discovery that had conspiracy theorists' minds absolutely swirling. About a decade ago, someone was searching through some Google Maps images when they found a mysterious array of structures and patterns that appeared to be etched into the surface of the Gobi Desert, which is, of course, located in China. The structures are reminiscent of geoliths, but they're seemingly much more modern and newly created. The speculation of what this structure could be or why it was created went wild, with people saying that they were street maps of American cities or messages either to or from some sort of extraterrestrials. The list of bizarre theories just goes on. While this is still sort of conspiracy sounding, this is likely the most reasonable explanation for what these structures are, and that is that these structures are used to help calibrate China's spy and radar satellites. To be fair, this does make a lot of sense, and I don't have any other ideas on what it could be for, so. In our number 4 spot today, we have the droughts. Ancient drawings and writings were found covering the walls of the Dayu Cave, which is located in central China, and a lot of them detail different droughts and such that were experienced during the time of their writing. According to these drawings, people would come to the cave for either water or to pray for rain in times of drought. The writings reveal some of the horrors that the people of the time experienced while going through these periods of drought, including severe starvation, social instability, and conflict between government and citizens. While these cave writings show us a difficult time in history, researchers say that the stalagmites that were also found in the cave might show a grim prediction for the future. Since these are formed by dripping water and they form sort of rings, like how trees do, and these rings can give us insights into different things. Based on the patterns of these rings, scientists were able to corroborate the things that the cave writings were saying, but they were also able to make a grim prediction for the future, which is that unfortunately the region may again see one of these catastrophic droughts, this time in the late 2030s. In our number 3 spot today, we have the ruins. Taking over our number 3 spot today, we have the most recent discovery on this list. While archaeologists were digging at one of the most important archaeological sites in China just earlier this year, they found a bronze altar as well as a dragon with a pig's nose, among many other things, in a couple of the sacrificial pits that are seen at this site. In fact, they said the findings were made in sacrificial pits 7 and 8, to which I have to ask, how many are there? Another highlight of the new finds was a bronze box with a tortoise-shaped lid. Inside, this box contained jade artifacts, and even traces of silk fabric were found around it. These finds are so astonishing because every little piece gives us so much insight into the buried secrets of the ancient Chinese civilization. In our number 2 spot today, we have an ancient mystery. While excavating a tomb in China, the team discovered the skeleton of a young man that was riddled with wounds, giving clues as to how he died. The man is estimated to have been about 25 years old at the time of his death, and it is thought that he was harmed and then thrown into the tomb raider's shaft while still alive, which is absolutely gruesome. It is believed that this crime took place between 640 and 680 AD. It appears as though he wasn't a thief because the shaft had begun to be refilled with soil by the time of his death, so we really aren't sure why this young man met this cruel fate. As a true crime enthusiast myself, this is absolutely fascinating, and I wish we could find some answers to bring this guy's story full circle, but sometimes these things are just destined to stay a secret. In our number 1 spot today, we have the palace. Archaeologists and researchers were certainly baffled a few years ago when they were digging beneath the foundation of the Lifang Pagoda, which sits on Lifang Mountain. Well, digging isn't exactly the right word. To be honest, there was a huge stone or boulder that weighed over 1,500 pounds that was lifted away, which then revealed a stone tablet. Once this tablet was lifted, it revealed a huge underground palace. Inside this palace, researchers found many hidden treasures that included a Buddhist statue, bronze mirrors, coins, and there was also a rusty iron case that was found during the initial discovery, which researchers believe held many relics. The pagoda that sat on top of this hidden palace was first completed in 976 AD, so it is thought that this area remained untouched from at least then until its modern discovery.
Number 10. Dragon of Death. We all know that millions of years ago, dinosaurs roamed the earth before they became extinct. Scientists are constantly working to put together the fossils and remains that they have found and discover new species. One of the ones that was discovered recently has been described as the Dragon of Death. It was a flying reptile like a pterodactyl that is described as having been the size of a bus. Fully extended, its wings measured 30 feet from one tip to the other, and they were apparently as tall as giraffes. The leader on the project said that its size defies the limits of our biological understanding. The remains were discovered in the mountains of Argentina, and the specimen is apparently around 86 million years old, being preserved within the rocks. It's incredible to think of the sheer size of some species of dinosaurs and to imagine them compared to ourselves. With all the talk of scientists wanting to bring certain animal species back from extinction, it may not be long until we have a real-life Jurassic Park. Number 9. Haunted idols. Burial sites often fall victim to grave robberies, things being stolen from the dead and defenseless. In May of this year, a group stole 16 statues from a 300-year-old temple, but what they stole caused them to regret their decision. After less than a week, 14 of the 16 stolen statues reappeared on the doorstep of the temple's chief priest, returned in fine condition. The thieves left a letter of confession for stealing the statues and